Hi guys, and welcome to the Women's Football Review. Okay. So today we're going to talk about results, and we're going to look at all the tables, and then we're going to talk about some of the big news. This week there's been quite a lot of negative news surrounding women's football, so we're going to talk about that, and then we're going to do, this time it won't be a player spotlight, it's going to be a manager spotlight, because I saw something on Twitter that I'll explain later, and it just really, it was really important. So we're doing a manager spotlight this week, and then next week we will have a special guest in from Her Game 2 to talk about, it will be Victoria, to talk about all things Her Game 2. So let's have a look at the results. In the Women's Super League, the big game is tonight for me, because it's going to be Manchester City versus Arsenal, and it kicks off at 6:45 p.m. and we are on Sky Sports. So please watch if you can. City will move right up the table with a win, and let's see if we can beat Arsenal, who are steadfast at the top of the table. So the results from today were Manchester United won 3-0 against Spurs. United are now in second and are only 1 point behind the leaders Arsenal. Brighton and Chelsea was a 0-0 draw, which was actually a bit of a shock. I expected Chelsea to win that one. Leicester and Aston Villa. Aston Villa beat Leicester 2-1. And Reading beat Birmingham City 3-2. West Ham beat Everton 3-0. So we've still got Arsenal at the top of the table and United only 1 point behind the leaders. And then Man City play tonight versus Arsenal at 6:45 p.m. In the FA Women's Championship, the biggest game was Crystal Palace versus Liverpool. Now, before the game, Liverpool were obviously top of the table, and Liverpool said that they were ready, and they are ready to fight for promotion to the Women's Super League. And could it be Crystal Palace that actually stopped them in their tracks? But unfortunately, Crystal Palace did lose 4-0 to Liverpool in the FA Women's Championship. So Liverpool are claiming that top spot. They are not looking to move at all. And Crystal Palace, unfortunately, now slipped down to 5th. But it is really tight at the top of the FA Women's Championship table. Really tight. But unfortunately, Crystal Palace just couldn't do it. And I was willing them on in both games today, the men's and the women's. Durham and Sheffield United was a 1-1 draw in the FA Women's Championship. And Coventry lost 1-0 to the London City Lions. Crystal Palace, lost 4-0. And Sunderland lost 2-0 to Lewes Women. And Charlton Athletic beat Bristol City 2-0. And just want to talk about the Bristol City game. Bristol City game was part of the Her Game 2 dedicated weekend of football that has been going on this weekend. So there were lots of people invited to the Bristol City game by Her Game 2, and it was a weekend dedicated. So in the Bristol City men's game, it was in the programme, and it was a weekend dedicated to Her Game 2, and it was really nice to see at the ground, all around on the advertising boards, Her Game 2's logo plastered everywhere. If you don't know what Her Game 2 is, it's a massive campaign aimed at kicking the sexism out of football. And these dedicated weekends, are incredible. And the Bristol City women's game was actually part of that weekend, which was amazing. And there were lots of women's youth teams that were invited to the game to watch and join. And then Watford and Blackburn, it was a 0-0 draw. So the FA Women's Championship, Liverpool look like they are going to get that promotion. And unfortunately, like we said, Crystal Palace did slip down to 5th. But Liverpool are hanging on to that top spot. And I think they will definitely get their promotion to the Women's Super League. Now let's look at the Northern Premier. So it is really hard to find anything to do with any of these games because you don't get any match reports. I think they are looking at. Oh my God, this. I was just about to see how I did it. I am trying to learn how to do technology, everybody. Yeah, so I think they are looking at these dedicated weekends. I can't say that word, dedicated weekends, to be quite regular. And I think that would be a really, really good idea, because for like the girls' teams to get to go and watch the games and to feel special, and it'll raise so much awareness as well, especially when it's at the men's games as well. So I think we are looking at doing them quite regularly. So hopefully they will become a regular thing, and it would be good to see more of it more in like the Premier League as well, because I can imagine how amazing that would be to have a dedicated weekend of Her Game 2 football all over the Premier League. That would be absolutely incredible. I saw a picture on social media the other day of a girls' youth team. I think it was like an under 11s, and they all had the Her Game 2 logo on the sleeve of the shirt, and it was just incredible. And it is so good to see. Oh, thank you guys for joining. That's amazing. So yeah, it's really, we are all well here, apart from me. I have the world's worst cold, and it's horrific. Oh, thank you. Hi everyone, thanks for joining. I just love it when people join. I get that excited. Yeah, so the Northern Premier, Brighouse Town beat Hull City 5-0. There was massive scoring games in the Northern and the Southern Premier, and it's a shame that we can't get more information. Hull City have now only got 2 points this season, so it's not looking great for them. Huddersfield won 2-0 against Middlesbrough. Sheffield and Loughborough was a 1-1 draw. Stoke City lost 1-0 to Nottingham Forest, and Wolverhampton and Derby finished 3-2 to Wolverhampton. Derby are still claiming that second spot, though. They are hanging on in there. And in the Southern Premier, Bridgewater United beat MK Dons 2-0. Crawley Wasps versus the London Bees finished 2-1 to the London Bees. Hounslow lost 3-0 against Gillingham, and Hounslow actually have no points this season, so it is not looking good for them at all. Keynsham and Ipswich Town finished 5-2 to Keynsham, and do you know what? That would have been amazing. Again, it would be amazing to see more coverage of these games, because that's a 5-2. That's a big scoring game, and I'm hoping we get more and more coverage. And Ipswich Town remain top of the Southern Premier. Oxford United beat Chichester 3-0, and Plymouth Argyle beat Cardiff 2-1. And they are all the results from this weekend. So let's go back to the Women's Super League. We've got Arsenal still at the top of the table, and they are to play Manchester City Women tonight at 6:45 on Sky Sports, which is amazing. I love it when the women's games are on Sky Sports. I just think you get so much more coverage, and it is so important. And it would be good if we could get more Her Game 2 stuff involved in the Women's Super League. But speaking about Manchester City, we have started making contacts with Manchester City surrounding Her Game 2, which is very exciting. And we are trying to get more and more Premier League clubs involved. If you haven't seen, the first Premier League club to join Her Game 2 was Everton, which is amazing. And we have a lot of the lower league teams that have joined us. And I know that Callum Best was on Soccer AM, and he actually shouted out Her Game 2, which I thought was absolutely incredible. And he is a massive supporter of the Her Game 2 campaign, which is just amazing. And in the FA Women's Championship, it looks like Liverpool are going to get the promotion that they are desperate for. They are playing incredibly well this season, and they won 4-0 this weekend. So let's talk about, I won't be on, the biggest shock of the weekend. Oh, that's a good one. The biggest shock, is that Ryan Edwards, my boyfriend Ryan Edwards, I think it is. He's going to come and shout at me about Jack Grealish. The biggest shock of the weekend, I think for me, there was a couple. I think Brighton versus Chelsea being a 0-0 draw, that was a shock for me personally. I thought Chelsea would have won that one, and I was expecting them to win that one. And I think for me, I think the Crystal Palace game, it was honestly a big shock for me, because I expected Crystal Palace to get more of a result against Liverpool. And I know Liverpool are right at the top of that FA Women's Championship, but I really, really expected more from that game. I really did. So I think definitely the Brighton-Chelsea game as well being a draw. Finally, progress being made. I just can't escape Grealish. He absolutely can't. If you don't know, I am obsessed with Jack Grealish. That is my confession of the show tonight. But yeah, talking about women's football, progress is finally being made. Oh, absolutely. An absolute quality player. And I just think that was a shock for me, that 0-0 draw. I did expect more from Chelsea. But I think, I don't want to say it, but I think Arsenal will win this season. I would like Manchester City to win, but we can move right up the table with a win tonight, which would just be brilliant. Absolute quality player. Yeah, I agree. So let's move on to some big news. It's not good news, but it's big news. So you've probably all seen, if you're on social media, Chelsea's Erin Cuthbert has called out an article linking players to sex noises, which is just like, what? Why are we reading this in 2022? It is ridiculous. So this article was actually in The Sun, okay, which for me says it all. And it was, we've taken Liverpool. How? What is going on? Let's just talk about Manchester City against Southampton. Was it a red card? It was for me. Do you know what I mean? But clearly the Premier League want a title race, and clearly the FA Women's Championship want Liverpool to win as well. It's ridiculous, honestly. And I do feel sorry for you, Rich, because that is a bit of a bad day for Crystal Palace all round at the office there. And I was praying that both Crystal Palace teams would do something. So yeah, back to the article. It was in The Sun, and it was actually classed as an exclusive in The Sun, which I think is absolutely disgusting. And it linked the names of recent Chelsea goal scorers to sex noises, which would have been appropriate if it was about the men's team as well. But I just think it says it all, that it was surrounding I saw memes and things. I'm going to try and do this comment. Oh, I did it. Look at me. Technology queen. I saw memes and things, but for a paper to publish. Yeah, exactly. For a national newspaper to publish the article thinking that it's okay, for me, just shows the lack of respect for women's football, because I feel like anyone that had respect for the game would think, I've seen this, but I'm not actually going to draw attention to it. But they ran with it as an exclusive, which to me is really, really worrying and absolutely disgusting. And for a Chelsea player herself to come out and call it out shows that they do see things, they do read things. Yeah, exactly. Expect nothing less from The Sun. Exactly. I'm just going to turn over. I've wrote loads of notes. So the Chelsea player, her last name is Harder, and she actually scored a hat-trick during their victory over West Ham in the Conti Cup, which is incredible. And this is what we should be talking about, not the newspaper article, but unfortunately, here we are. She is regarded as one of the best attacking talents in women's football. So you've got a player that is best attacking talent in women's football. She scored a hat-trick, and this is what she gets from that. So the article has actually caused uproar. Everyone's saying, yeah, they saw it on social media. It's caused uproar on social media. Football fans have been calling it disgusting and dismal, which I actually think does show progress, because I think maybe a few seasons ago, people would have just laughed along and not said anything. But the fact that there are male and female football fans actually saying, no, this is not okay, this is disgusting, I think actually does show us progress, because it's showing us that people know this isn't okay and they're not just going to laugh along with it. And it's just not okay. And I just think that when this woman has done such incredible things, all you've done is shown her that it doesn't matter and you don't really care how well she's done. And I'm really glad that everyone's saying in the comments that it was disgraceful, and it was all over social media saying how disgraceful it was, because it is, and it's just not okay. Because I don't think, and I know that this wouldn't happen in the men's game. And there are things that are said and done in the men's game, but this is just, it's just not right. And I think for players themselves to call it out and say how upsetting it was for them. Yes, it did. Yes, amazing. El Clasico did. Talking of progress, amazing. Yes, El Clasico did sell out 70,000 plus fans, and this is massive news. I just think, wow, incredible. Like, this is progress, and this is what we are seeing. So yeah, and I'm glad you've put that comment up, because we can talk about a lot of negativity, a lot of disrespect, but for the El Clasico to have sold out 70,000 plus fans is amazing. I don't even know why I didn't write that down. Yeah, see, I've had this. This is a really good comment, because I've had this discussion so many times with people that all women's teams should be playing on the same stadiums. Because if you look back to the first show that I did, there were so many games that were called off because of frozen pitches, because of waterlogged pitches and things like that. And I do agree. I think that the women's team should be playing at the same stadium, because it's the same game. It is the same game. And I think we do a lot of, women's football and this football, and that's all you get from people. Oh, women's, it's just not the same. But it is. It's the same game, just played by a different gender of person. And yeah, I agree. I do think, and I've had this discussion. Exactly, it is facts. And exactly, thank you, there is no reason why this cannot be arranged. And I love these comments, because it just shows like how amazing some of you are. And I agree with that comment. There is no reason why that can't be arranged. They can move football games for TV. They can mess with fixtures for TV. They can tell fans that have already bought the train tickets to rebook them for TV, for other things. They can have concerts in stadiums. They can change stadiums to suit American football. They can do all of these things. So there is no reason why it cannot be arranged. And I think it should be, if you want to get women's football respected the same way as men's football, to have Manchester City women come out at the Etihad. Well, there'd be no fans, would there? I'm getting in there before somebody else says it. But it would elevate the game. And I went to, it was the first derby. Yeah, it was the first derby, because Manchester United had just gone into the Women's Super League. It was the first derby, City and United women, and it was played at the Etihad, and it was empty had. Thank you, Rich. Yeah. The thing is, it actually is. And at first I used to argue with people, and now I'm like, yeah, there's just no one in there. But I went to the first derby, the City and United women, and it was incredible. And that was at the Etihad. They played it at the Etihad because it was like the major thing. And that was incredible. And I agree, there is no reason why this can't be arranged. It makes no sense that it's separated. Yeah, exactly. Exactly. When the men are playing away, if you can't arrange it to be all the time, but when the men are playing away games, yeah, move the fixtures around. This is amazing, guys. I'm so like, this shows how amazing you all are, because exactly, let the women play at the stadium. Why should they not get to play at the same stadiums and get the same treatment and have the experience? And I think you would get more fans. I genuinely do, because when it was that first derby, and it was at the Etihad, it was really packed. Probably more packed than normal. Yes, Ryan Edwards says empty had. Don't think he should be saying that. But yeah, it was packed. And I took a little girl that I worked with from one of the schools I used to work in, and she absolutely loved it, because she saw the game that she loves elevated to this higher level, because it was at the Etihad, and she saw the Man City shop, and it was the same, and she saw the men's like pictures everywhere, and then she went in the stadium and it was the women, and that's incredible. Just think of all the girls. Exactly. Juna scored at the Stretford end. Yeah, exactly. There are girls that have these ambitions, but they're still being told, yeah, you can play football, but you're not actually going to play at the same level as men. And they're battling against that constantly. And I think, yeah, there is no reason for it. I just think people don't care enough for it to be done. Let me read this big one. They have had games in the stadiums plenty of times. It's been very successful. Exactly. Providing better facilities in general helps to upgrade the overall product. It really, really does. Exactly. And just letting them, even if you say, oh, we can't play all the games, which would probably be said, but even if you played more games at the men's stadiums, it elevates and elevates and elevates the game, and it upgrades the game to a higher level. And that is what we need. Yeah, exactly. And it is successful. And I just think, why not continue a successful thing? And the respect it will show. And like we said in the comments, the young girls that will watch and think, actually, hang on, I can actually go and play at a high level, and I can actually play in, because a lot of these girls support the men's teams too. And they, for example, there might be a girl that loves I don't know, I was going to say Jack Grealish, but I'll get into trouble, that loves Ruben Diaz. And she thinks, oh, I can play one day at the Etihad just like Diaz. And she actually can, because the women play at the Etihad just like the men. And it's just about, like you said, it's just about giving better facilities in general, and it helps to upgrade. You cannot do more with something if you don't have the tools to do more with it. You know, and I think people don't realize that. And the people, I'm really sorry if I keep sniffing, I've got a really bad cold. The people that complain about the quality need to understand how much the women's game, exactly. The people that complain about the quality need to understand how much the women's game has been stifled and neglected over the years in the grand. Exactly. It is still in its infancy. The women's game is still in its infancy. And like you said, people that complain about the quality of it don't remember that it's been pushed down and neglected and pushed to the back and not cared about. How can you get the quality better if you're not being given the tools to do that? That's in any career path, in any walk of life. You cannot get something elevated to a higher level if you don't put in the money and the time and the care and things like that. It just doesn't work. And exactly, people need to realize that like they can't do any more than they are doing now. Exactly, more money in the game will help improve it. And by putting the games on, like tonight, Man City versus Arsenal's on Sky Sports, that is amazing. These things are really important. Oh, I love this comment. Taking my oldest daughter Nyla to watch Palace Women was amazing because she had a really great time, and she's 4. Exactly. Like, that is a gorgeous 4-year-old girl going to watch Palace Women. And that's just, like, I was into my performing arts, my things like that. And yeah. And I used to go and watch musicals, and I would sit there and think, I can do that. And the more and more, like the Her Game 2 dedicated weekend, there were loads of girls, like under 11s, under 13s teams going. And it's so important. And the more we make it accessible for young girls to go and watch, like, what's this saying? There's rumours like they did with the women's game on first. Exactly. So imagine if you've got a daughter, like Rich said, his daughter, and you've got a season ticket for the men's game, and you want to take your daughter, but you'd also love her to see the women's game. Imagine you can watch the women and then you can watch the men. So she can see both sets of football And she can see that they are both being respected and held to the same standard. That is what is important, because at the minute, yes, there is a lot more opportunities for young girls in football, but at the minute, all these girls are seeing is, yeah, you can do it and you can score a hat trick, but the fact that you've got a last name that someone immature thinks is funny, you're going to be laughed at, you're going to be mocked. You can't play at the main stadiums. You won't be on telly. If you play in the Northern Premier, you can't get match updates. You can't do things. So you're still, it's better, but it's not better. So you're still being told that you can do it, but you can't do it to the same level as a man. And then if you don't have the support behind you, like, I don't know if anyone watched my player spotlight, but if you don't have the support behind you, like Steph Horton's family gave her, you're just going to give up, because you are smashing into this brick wall all the time. Yeah, proper investment leads to better quality, and it does. If there was proper investment in the women's game, the quality would be completely different. And that's what people say, no, it's just not as good. Oh, it's not this, it's not that, it's not the other. But it's, like we said before, it's still in its infancy. And if things aren't put in, it can't get better. What's your prediction on who will win each? I'm going to have to get this tables up on my phone. And now my phone's broke. So that's brilliant. I'm really, really bad at technology, everybody. This is all down to Rich. Let's just shout him out. Eagle-eyed football. Let's please just shout him out for doing this and helping me figure out all this technology, because I am rubbish. So I think Arsenal will, yeah, I don't ever want to say Man United. Women's game, whatever. I'm not going to say Man United. I am that bitter. So I think Arsenal are going to win the Women's Super League. And I think that, let me have a look on here. Yeah, and I think that Birmingham City are going to go down. So they've only got 4 points so far this season. So I absolutely, Chelsea won, brilliant. So yeah, I think Arsenal women will win, and I think Birmingham will go down. Let's go on to the Championship. I think Liverpool are going to get promoted. Absolutely, I think it's nailed on, unfortunately. And yeah, I think, yeah, Coventry have had it. Coventry United ladies, they have absolutely had it this season. I don't think there is a way back for them this season at all. Let's have a look at the Northern Premier table. I did not answer all your questions. I love the fact that there's so many, and I love the fact that there's so many guys that are like, it needs this and it needs this, and this is what we need. I always say that, oh my gosh, I am choking. I always say on issues to do with women's football, women can be, I'm actually joking. Women can be the vocal point and speak up, but the more men that we get that champion the improvement of women's football, the more investment of women's football, the more men that we actually get behind campaigns to do with improving women's football is massive. Because I always say it, like, men's voices are heard more in football. Men's football, unfortunately, is way more respected. So surely some of the best people to help and aid women in getting the game elevated are men. And that's why it's so amazing seeing all your incredible comments. Let's have a look at the Northern Premier. AFC Fylde are at the top with 29 points, but also Derby County women also have 29 points. I think Derby could do it. I really, really do. They've both played the same amount of games and they're both on 29 points. I do think Derby could do it if they've just got to score more goals. Yeah, because their goal difference is what's doing them at the minute. I think Derby could absolutely do it there. Let's go on to the Southern Premier. You literally have to Google to find these. Yeah, and Ipswich Town are going to stay bang on top of that Southern Premier. Absolutely. 40 points at the top. Let's go for some of these comments. Yeah, the proof is in the pudding. Yeah, exactly. The USA women's team, they kind of led the way in the women's game. Exactly. And me and Rich were talking about it before. Like, we were saying, we hate the word accepted, but women's football seems to be respected is a better word. That's the word to use. Respected more. And that the USA women's team of Megan Rapinoe, like, they are so well respected. And the proof is in the pudding. Literally, the more investment you give to something, the better the quality gets. Like, women's football can only do so much with what it gets given. Which one thing would you introduce or change to make women's football better in the short and long term? That is such a good question. So it says, which one thing would you introduce or change to make women's football better in the short or long term? And that women's football game deserves the investment as the government. Well, yeah, exactly. Women's football was, it was stopped and it wasn't a thing. And that's a really good question, actually. I think I would introduce, speaking of like where the games are played, I think I would introduce more games, if not all games, but more games at the same stadiums as the men's team. I think that would really, really help to elevate women's football. I think it would, like, I can't remember who said it, but it's saying that it's, they've had games in the stadiums plenty of times. It's been very successful. Exactly. And I think that that's something I would change. Great question. That's something I would change to make women's football better, is to have more stadiums played at the men's stadiums, because it has been proven to be successful and it has worked and it does draw more of a crowd. And I think, like Ryan said, like having it that was a good comment. I think, like Ryan said, having it more accessible, so it's like before the men's game, would really, really help. Linking it, having a closer relationship between the women's and men's game, allowing the women to play at the stadiums is one thing that I would definitely change. And I think it would make a massive, massive, massive difference to women's football on the whole. Exactly. Look at international tournaments, how successful they are. Clearly, exactly, there is a demand for it. It just needs to be made more accessible. There are so many young girls now playing football, and like all of you guys in the comments wanted to know more about the game, tuning into the show, wanting to know who I think is going to get relegated, wanting to know the news, things like that. There is demand for it. It needs to be made more accessible, and doing things like, exactly, the highlight show is on ridiculously late. Do you know what I mean? Like, it's on ridiculously late. Who's going to watch it? People have jobs, people have things, and that, for me, shows the lack of respect. Who's going to watch it when it's on ridiculously late? How are the little girls and little boys that want to know about women's football? Like, they're going to be in bed. And like little things like that, putting the highlight show on at a more appropriate time, just making it more accessible for everybody. Sorry, I'm just like sniffling. American here. People absolutely loved women's football as soon as they became an international powerhouse. If there's one thing the US loves to do, it's to brag about how good the US is. I love that. But yeah, well, exactly, they did. They became this international powerhouse, and I love how much the US brags about the women's team. I really do. For me, that is mega. Yeah. And yeah, exactly. And I think if you look at the American women's team, every team should be held to that esteem. Like, I always also feel like I don't know if anyone's noticed, but like when you watch like the men's games on like Sky Sports, and they say like coming up Super Sunday, the Manchester Derby, and it's all like they sound excited and it's all like hyped. And then they'll say Manchester City women versus Arsenal is on for you tonight. And I feel like it's just not given the same esteem by some of the pundits. But absolutely, that's a massively important thing that I'm going to take away and tweet about later. And we have talked about together tonight on the show is the way to make things like to help elevate, I don't know what I'm saying, to help elevate women's football is to make it more accessible. Like, how can you expect women's football to be at the higher level when you give it nothing? It won't work. What was my other bit of news? We got sidetracked and I love it. West Ham versus Chelsea in the Conti Cup. A West Ham supporter was ejected from the stadium due to an allegation of a homophobic chant. This is not okay. And it came after Chelsea's first goal. Whoa. It's a big comment, but it's my boyfriend, so I better read it. It comes down to the academy system, why the Americans... He is a sports coach and development student, everybody. So he knows what he's talking about. I'm really blind as well. So. Well, exactly. And exactly, that's like the essentials. It comes down to the academy system, why the American system works so well in the women's game. It's literally coming down, Ryan, great comment, I suppose. It's actually coming right down to the fundamentals. I don't know much about how much support there is for young girls wanting to go into football. Ryan probably knows a lot more, like about how it works and things like that. I remember we spoke about on the player spotlight, Steph. Who is Jess? Steph Horton there was no centre for excellence for her. So at 9 years old, she had to play with the under-16s. And it comes down to the fundamentals. What are we doing to support the young girls? And then once they get there, like we've talked about tonight, what are we putting in place to make the game more accessible? How much are we funding it? What are we doing? And people complain about the quality of women's football. It's not this, it's not that. Oh, it's played here and it's this, that, and the other. But it doesn't have to be. It's being neglected. And it is getting better. And I'm so grateful for everyone's comments. But yeah, West Ham versus Chelsea game. Homophobic abuse is not okay. Men's game, women's game, anything. And I just wanted to mention that. And it's not okay at all. And yeah, it's not okay, is it? The Continental Cup semi-final draw. We've got Manchester City against Spurs and Chelsea versus Man United. I just want to talk about Khadija Shaw. She is one of my favourite City players, a Jamaican. I am half Jamaican. And she got the double against Bristol, which sent City through to the semi-final. And I'm hoping Manchester City can go on to win the cup. We hope. So, like I said, the spotlight we have this week is not about a player, it is about a manager, and it is about the Chelsea women's manager, Emma Hayes. So I don't know if anybody saw this on... Oh my God, I'm so sniffly. On on Twitter. I was inspired by social media. So Emma Hayes sent a card to a woman that was in a very low place with her anxiety and her mental health. And she said she was actually at breaking point. And she got a card from Emma Hayes. And she said that it literally changed how she was feeling. And I just thought that that was incredible, thoughtful, and insightful. And it just thought, do you know what? This woman deserves the spotlight. So the spotlight is on a manager this week. So Emma Hayes was born on the 18th of October, 1976, and she was appointed Chelsea women's manager in August 2012. She's had a long, long reign at Chelsea. She was the only female manager in that league at that stage when she got appointed, and that is incredible. She was the only female manager when she got appointed. Got so many notes, ridiculous. She won the FA Women's Super League in 2015 as Chelsea manager and the Women's FA Cup, which was a historic and memorable double. She then did her second domestic double in 2018. I get so excited to talk about her. I think she's amazing. She also reached the semi-final of the Champions League for the second time that season. So 2 domestic doubles. This woman is incredible. In 2020, she won the Women's Super League title and the Conti Cup and defended both the next season. She was named Women's Super League Manager of the Season in consecutive campaigns. Her career spans over a decade. Speaking of America, she had a 2-year spell in America in 2001 and was actually the youngest female head coach in history. This woman is incredible. The youngest female head coach in history in America in 2001. She was at Arsenal for 3 seasons as the assistant first team coach with Arsenal ladies. And as well as her role, I can't read my own writing, as well as her role as a backroom staff, she was also combined with the position as academy director, which, talking about Ryan's comment about the academy system, I think this is amazing. And she's exactly the kind of woman that we need. Her job was to oversee the development of young players at the club as academy director, and she actually has lots of players that she oversaw the development of that are now playing in the Women's Super League. So that's how influential she was. Youngest female head coach in history, was the only female appointed manager when she joined with Chelsea. She's won 2 domestic doubles. She's defended the Women's Super League title and the Conti Cup twice. She's been Women's Super League manager for consecutive seasons. And she has had that much influence on the game that some of the players that she oversaw as academy director at Arsenal are currently playing in the Women's Super League. What a woman. And she penned a new deal with Chelsea in July 2021. Committing her future to the club. Emma Hayes, please follow her, and she's just amazing. I love her. So her game 2, we are a campaign committed to knocking the sexism out of football. We do not tolerate any kinds of abuse towards football fans or at football games. I don't know what I'm saying then. I got distracted. But our sole focus is on sexism. So Her Game 2 was founded by some incredible girls who unfortunately had experienced a lot of sexism as female football fans. And Her Game 2 has grown and grown and grown, and I am the Manchester City ambassador for Her Game 2. So my job as ambassador, I am a port of call for female and male Manchester City fans who want to report any instances of sexism and abuse at games. I will be going, I've got a season ticket for Manchester City, and I will be looking at what Manchester City are doing as a club to tackle the sexism in football. And I will also be looking at seeing how we can create a relationship with Manchester City and get them, hopefully, to support us. Please follow Her Game 2 on all social media. The girls are the most supportive group, and we are working hard all the time to tackle the sexism in football. Our main focus, one of our main things we've been talking about is some of the chants. So I know there was a chant directed at Ched Evans that was "She Said No," and it's just about getting people to realise that the woman or man sat next to you could have been in a position of sexual assault, or could be a victim, or could know a victim. And it's just about thinking. That's a big thing at the minute, is some of the chants that are happening and people saying, oh, it's a part of football. It is not a part of the game. Sexism and chants about any kinds of abuse are not a part of the game. We're going to really go into detail about her game 2 next week. So please join us then. I'm going to have Victoria from Her Game 2 on to talk to you more in detail about it. She has been working with Her Game 2 practically since the beginning. And she is just an incredible, incredible person. And I will give her the complete floor for any questions about Her Game 2. And she's going to talk to you all about it. So please like and subscribe. I'm trying to remember what I'm supposed to say. I feel like a news reporter. I am SRJ_dance, I think, on Twitter, and _SAMARA Ruth Jasmine on Instagram. I'm so grateful for everyone and your comments and your conversation. You brought up some incredible conversations today. And please follow Her Game 2 and get involved. Thank you all so much for joining, and I will see you for another women's football review next week.